Hey everybody, this is Julie Quinn, and I wanted to do a video. I just gave feedback on the main discussion, non-grammar discussion for this week, and I'm intrigued and interested with all of your topics. First of all, let me just say that I think all of your topics are workable, and I'm excited to see your first forays into the exploration of it. And what you had to post for this week was 4 sources and APA style for most of you, with a bit of a discussion where you found it, some of the positives and negatives of that source from what you could tell based on the writing or where it was located, and then some the strategies of your search. Okay, all this is building first to this annotated bibliography assignment that's due next week, the end of next week, so like in a week and a half, where you use at least 4 sources and 2 of them must be scholarly. So I wanted to highlight that 2 of them must be scholarly sources, and what that means is they must come from the library databases. I'm actually going in here and modifying this from the scholarly sources from the journals from the UMGC library databases. I don't want students at the moment to get into the habit of just using Google. There's a significant concern for cutting some corners when using Google. And I'm not saying that all students have done it. I think you're naturally amenable to using Google because it's quick and it's fast and it's efficient. And sometimes there are amazing sources on Google. So I'm not maligning it. And Google isn't your source, right? Google's just the highway you take to get to the text. And some of you are finding really good trustworthy organizations, and we have to talk about credentialing our web sources. And the reason why I'm trying to orient all of you back to the UMUC or UMUGC now library databases is the fact that a lot of that credentialing is done ahead of time. So I want this video to go over what is a peer-reviewed source and where that sort of appears in the library. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to look up arming teachers. This is a topic that is timely. It's one that none of the students in here are doing, so I'm not giving anybody an advantage. But I thought that I could at least show you what this research looks like in real time with a topic that I'm going to narrow. Instead of just full text, which means you get the full source, which is important, you also want to add scholarly if you didn't click it in the first part of that one search main page. Okay, I have 81 texts. I haven't time limited it yet. This is from 1898, but let's go more recent. Let's go 2002, which is a little bit dated, but that gets us down to 20 articles. You'll notice some of them say find it. That's not one that we can actually quickly access. So we always want to go to one that says HTML or PDF full text. But I still have 20 sources with which to start from here. Okay, this one is the American Journal of Public Health. This next one is the High School Journal from an editorial board, but that's that find it, so we have to skip it. This next one, what do we know? Where do we go from here? American Journal of Public Health. And you can see that public health journal is there. This one is the Phi Delta Kappan. This next one is the Connecticut Law Review. So we have range. We're not using the same journal for all of our sources. We can go in, and this one was from 2017. This one is from 2018. So we have some timeliness, and that is really good. So for all of your topics, I know that if you don't have a first good search, it's just mixing up some of the words. So then go to Google, go into the media bias chart. There's a new version of this. This just appeared. It's 5.0. And try to use all of the sources that are listed within this green section, most reliable for news. So we're doing news sources. We want to trust most reliable for news just to get bits and pieces of data. We're not looking for news analysis at the moment. We're not looking for opinion pieces. We're looking for a recent incident, actual reporting on the topic that is super current. That's what the news is really good for. Okay, so sources that tend to appear in this area: CNN, BBC, NPR, AP, Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, I believe Reuters is in there, and then there's some other ones, Financial Times, and so on and so forth. So you can, the New Yorker is possibly in there. The Atlantic gets in there a bit. If it borders on it, it's acceptable to me. You'll notice that these categories have been expanded. And I think you have to be super careful and critical. It's not bad in the final research essay to use sources that are outside of the green, but you can't overdo it, and you certainly cannot use any of the sources in orange or red that have extremism elements and reliability issues. And you also want to contend with the fact that journalist is not always an expert, but a journalist who has been writing on issues in the Middle East for 25 years has a layperson's expertise about reporting on the issue. So that's fine if you're doing a Middle East paper and you want to use that for some contextualization. I think that's okay. So it's all about balance. And the majority of the use should be peer-reviewed journal articles. And here's why. What that means with peer review is that the writer of the article has submitted it to the journal in their field. So say, I used to work, this true story, I used to work in academic journals editing for the American Anthropological Association and for Rowman and Littlefield. They're a book publisher. And so I worked on the journal called American Ethnologist. It's an anthropology journal. And so only 8 to 10%, maybe 12 in any given year, of articles were accepted. So the vast majority of well-written articles were not even accepted for publication. So there is a weeding out, or like a bottleneck feature that keeps most articles out, even if they're good. So only the best of the best are published. And those best of the best articles go through a significant amount of peer review. What that means is, say you're an anthropologist and you want to publish in this journal. Well, the article, your name gets stripped out of it. It gets sent to blind reviewers who are also anthropologists, and those reviewers are determined by the editorial board. And they go back and forth with the author. They double check the data. They look at how sound the argument is and the methodology, like what was the research and the structure of the research, and did they treat the research subjects well? Did they do X, Y, and Z? And then after all of the potential issues are dealt with, then does the journal say, okay, we're going to publish this? That process takes sometimes 6 months to a year. I would say 9-10 months on average. So the process is long, and that's why on some of your recent issues, one classmate I think is writing about tariffs with China, you're not going to find a lot of academic articles that have been immediately published about that because the issue is so recent. So what you have to do is find research adjacent articles in the databases that may be on a previous round of tariffs and what happened and what that looks like. And then use the newspapers to say, and now with China and with this situation. So you can still do research, but don't be disappointed if in the academic research you don't find exactly what you need if the topic is super timely. But on the topic of arming teachers, there is academic research there. And we can go outside of one search and go into other databases and expand our research within the library database. But I wanted to show you what Google looks like with this topic because it's a crapshoot. Okay, everytownresearch.org. Well, who is that .org? What are they trustworthy? Just because it comes up toward the top of the first page of a Google hit doesn't make it automatically trustworthy. Up until very recently, Stormfront, the neo-Nazi organization, had a .org. Anybody can get a .org. So you have to, and I'll post a separate video for this, where there's this great website that shows how to do analysis of website content. Schoolsecurity.org. I've never heard of them either. So you have to go onto the websites, then you have to really do the work of credentialing a source. I'll save that for a separate article. But then we've got educationweek.org. Then we get a newspaper, the New York Times, which on the prior versions of the media bias chart was within the safe space. I couldn't see it this time, but a lot of the sources were layered on each other. But then look at the next one, scarymommy.com. I mean, the URL is enough to say, please don't ever use this as academic research. It's an opinion piece, a horrible response. Now, I'll tell you the reality of my feelings about the issue as a teacher. I agree. I think it's a horrible response. But if you look at the title or you look at the language in a text, I'm going to click on this and I'm going to show you language of and look at the image. The image is meant to create or elicit an emotional response. It's a serious-looking woman pointing a gun, luckily not directly at the reader, but it's a very abrupt sort of image. And it's a person who has experience. This is anecdotal evidence. I'm a teacher too. My experience doesn't represent all teachers, and neither does this writer. But the website isn't peer reviewed. It's a blog post. It's, look, read, confess. It's not a safe space. So you have to be really careful, A, that your news sources come from reliable news websites and that it's news, not opinion. The opinion we want is based on the analysis of thoughtful research projects that are found and disseminated through library databases first. Google Scholar is okay, but there's some content in Google Scholar that's not scholarly. I'll be honest with you. It doesn't weed everything out. Okay. So you have to be super careful, and you don't also want to put all your eggs in one basket. That means you don't want to use the New York Times, even though the New York Times is a pretty decent newspaper. You don't want to use them for every source. You want to go widely ranging, and you want to privilege the scholarly, right? So I want to just take a look at and see if I can find any sort of heightened language. Let's see. I'm a 5'5", 125-pound woman. It would take about 3 seconds for most high schoolers to overpower me. So anecdotal evidence is used in this way as evidence, but it's also used to elicit an emotional response. We consider that the fallacy of emotional argumentation. So you got to be really careful with a lot of what you find on the web. And so I'm just creating this quick video to encourage you to go back into the library databases. If the one search doesn't work, we'll go to databases by title. Let's find some educational ones if we can. Education research complete. And let me do one more search on arming teachers and mix your terms up. Maybe it's guns in classrooms. You've got to play with this search. Remember, the last one had just 20, but if I go back to scholarly searches, this one has 14. And I don't want 1937 is not reliable. Let's just say 2004. Let's see what happens with this search. Okay, maybe America's Armed Teachers and Ethical Analysis. Now these are that's a find it, but that's really interesting. Where did this one come from? Teachers College Record. It's super recent. There are references in there we can look at. Let's see. Some of these don't apply, like in vitro and silico computers are arming biology. That's not applicable. They don't always fit. Let's see. Here's an interesting one that I didn't see in the other database. This is from Clearinghouse. This is the 4th R, revolvers, principal perceptions related to armed school personnel and related legal issues. So not all of these are going to work, but a few of them will. That's added to the one search. So you can go into specialized databases and enhance it. And when you get stuck, reach out and chat with a librarian if it's 3 in the morning and you know I'm not available. See, you can chat with a librarian from the databases. And then shoot me an email even if it's 3 in the morning. I will respond to you the next day. I'll say, hey, is there a time when we can get on the phone and we can talk through it together? Because sometimes just brainstorming. Don't feel bad if you got a lot of feedback in the discussion. I wanted to be heavy this week so I can really help orient you and prepare you for the annotated bib. So I hope this discussion was a good support to the work that you'll be doing. Just reach out if you have any questions at all, okay? I look forward to hearing from you.